Hi there, and thanks for joining us for this Super Tuesday. I'm Alexis Rogers. Voting started just 5 hours ago in Minnesota's presidential primary, and there's still plenty of time to get your ballot in. At stake today is who will make it onto the ballot for November's general election. So here's what you need to know. You can find your polling place with the Polling Place Finder on the Secretary of State's website. If you haven't registered, you can still do that today, but you will need to bring an ID or proof of address. On your ballot, DFL voters will consider 9 candidates. The GOP will weigh in on 5 candidates. Those lists do include people who have since ended their campaign. Minnesota joins 16 other states and territories with primaries today, bringing a nationwide interest in what the results will bring. Gordon Severson shows us why today's vote matters.
Originally, Super Tuesday was designed to be mostly a Southern thing.
Super Tuesday can be traced back to the year 1976, when the term first emerged during the race between Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford. In the 1980s, the idea took off, with more states joining in, hoping to play a bigger role in the presidential race. Fast forward to today, 16 states, including Minnesota, are participating in Super Tuesday.
The decision to join the Super Tuesday states was basically aimed at making Minnesota more influential, making sure that candidates visit Minnesota, that candidates care about Minnesota because it's a Super Tuesday state.
But political commentator Brian McClung says that really didn't happen this year.
We got one visit out of this, Nikki Haley, last Monday. And that's really been just about it for Minnesota.
The biggest reason is the races haven't been close. He says most years at least one of the parties would have 2 to 4 candidates in a close race heading into Super Tuesday. But this year, he says both parties have had clear frontrunners for months.
Donald Trump won't be able to win enough delegates from the contests on Tuesday to formally win the nomination. But in all likelihood, he's going to sweep the Super Tuesday states.
McClung says Nikki Haley could have a decent showing in Minnesota. She did visit the state last week, and Minnesota Republicans have a history of breaking away from the national trend.
I don't think that means Nikki Haley is likely to win Minnesota on Tuesday, but she could perform better here than in a number of states.
And leading up to today's election, there's been a lot of focus on who will win Minnesota's delegates on the Republican ballot. But if you're voting on the Democratic ticket, you'll see another option. Instead of voting for President Biden, you could select uncommitted. Almost 60 Minnesota Muslim faith and community leaders signed on to a campaign to vote uncommitted. They say they want to send a message to President Biden to change his policy towards funding for funding for Israel and the war in Gaza, and to call for a permanent ceasefire. In Michigan's primary last week, more than 100,000 Democrats chose to vote uncommitted. That was about 13% of the vote. Now, if you still have questions going into the polls today, we have everything you need to know about Super Tuesday in one convenient place. All you got to do is text the word VOTE to 763-797-7215, and we'll send you back a direct link. And of course, stick with us tonight as the results come in. Well, we're taking a live look at the weather as you head to the polls. Ben shows us what we could expect for the rest of the day.
We are seeing a good amount of sunshine out there today and otherwise pretty quiet weather heading into this Tuesday. Seasonably warm temperatures are expected as highs warm back in the mid to even upper 40s today. Cooler this week, or later this week, I should say, with a few rain and snow showers possible both Thursday into Friday, but little, if anything's forecast to come out of that, with further warming as we head into next week when 50s and even 60s could be in the forecast. Let's take a look at the next 12 hours. You will see kind of a mix of clouds and sunshine this afternoon, but generally speaking, not a whole lot happening today, with a light northeasterly breeze turning easterly this evening. Temperatures peaking in the mid to upper 40s and once again dipping back below the freezing mark tonight. We'll talk about additional rain and snow chances in the forecast later this week coming up.
Ben, thank you. New at noon, Minneapolis police have activated their new robbery protocol after another string of incidents. This time they happened on the city's south side, all within a 2-hour span. Officers say they got calls on 6 different incidents from around 3 to 4:45 yesterday afternoon. In many of them, witnesses report seeing men in black masks or a black vehicle pulling away. Victims also describe seeing guns or hearing gunshots. Investigators are still working to determine if these cases are linked. Right now, nearly 1,000 nursing home workers are holding a one-day strike across the metro. Many of them are represented by SEIU Healthcare Minnesota and Iowa. They're outside about a dozen locations asking for a $25 minimum wage, retirement security, and better working conditions. The Minnesota Nurses Association is at the state capitol calling for action against what they call corporate greed. Members are asking lawmakers to take action on a set of bills that would, in part, provide protections for nurses and advocates against retaliation when they speak up. Earlier this morning, they also met with Attorney General Keith Ellison. Well, today, the state is one step closer to a compromise on the future of school resource officers. The Minnesota House has passed a bill clarifying rules around use of force. The Compromise Fix bill allows school resource officers to use the same reasonable force standards, but not as discipline. It also sets up statewide standards and training for school resource officers. The bill now heads to the Senate, which could just pass the House version or keep working on their own.
We want to make sure our schools, our kids, and our teachers are safe.
It does create a bright line as to when SROs can engage our students, and it can't be for discipline.
Republican lawmakers say there's still about 40 law enforcement agencies across the state that are waiting for Governor Walz to sign this bill before they put their SROs back into schools. Edina Public Schools have delayed a budget meeting after pro-Palestinian protesters took over last night's meeting. They're calling for an apology from the district to 2 students suspended last year for chanting a phrase that some consider anti-Semitic. The chant was used during a walkout last year in opposition to the war in the Middle East. We've reached out to Edina Public Schools and we'll update you when we get a response. We'll take a look at this video into our newsroom of a deadly fire and explosion in Michigan. The massive industrial fire is still burning in the Detroit suburb. It's at a distribution center for vaping products with canisters of butane, nitrous, and lighter fluid. Authorities say a 19-year-old died after he was hit by a canister about a quarter-mile from the scene. While crews work to put out the flames, they also have their eye on other concerns.
Obviously, we don't want any of this product leaching into the water system, so that's one of our main concerns is just the environment and everything that's going on.
The initial cause of the fire is still unknown. Boeing has less than 90 days to create a plan to improve quality following an FAA audit report. The audit and expert panel review followed the January incident when a door plug flew off an Alaska Airlines plane mid-flight. The FAA says it found multiple non-compliance issues in its audit. 3 passengers on that plane are now suing both Boeing and Alaska Airlines for $1 billion. Boeing's CEP says the company now has a clear picture of what needs to be done. He adds it will demonstrate profound change. Well, in just 2 hours, the new state flag and seal will once again be the center of debate. Lawmakers are meeting today to discuss legislation that would make corrections to the new seal design. The bill would also give Minnesotans the right to vote on whether the new flag should be approved. Right now, the new design is set to be raised on Statehood Day, May 11th.